Welcome. I'm Frank Conkling, and this is Panda Consulting's ArcGIS workshop. And for this workshop, we're going to look at ArcGIS Pro's new data engineering functions that are available in 2.8. Before we start, I just want to go in and give a little introduction here to make sure that everyone's aware of some of the changes we've made recently in both the invites and how we announce things on here. If you go to our Panda Consulting website, on there, you'll see there is an events page. And if we click on the events page, it brings up a calendar. And that calendar will show you and notify you of everything that we've got going up. So if, for example, if we have this data engineering one here, it will go in and do that. It'll show you what it is, a definition. If you want to go and register to get our newsletter, you can do that. It also will allow you to go and put this information into your calendar so that you don't need reminders other than that. If you don't like this graphic representation here, you can also go to the workshops and events page on our website, and that gives you a linear, go according to time. It gives you a linear discussion of everything that we have scheduled, including not just the workshops, but also any places where we might be talking. For example, the Central Florida GIS workshop is coming up in the middle of September. And then on September 16th, we have description defined workflows. September 23rd, we have cleaning up your data. In October, we were scheduled to go up to Minnesota GIS LIS. In October again, we have Esri Land Records meetups. So it gives you sort of a reference on where we're going to be, what we're going to do, that sort of thing. In addition, we also have not just the upcoming events, but also past events. So for example, condominiums, this was on August 19th. This was our workshop on condominiums. You can see a reference there. And from that, you can either click on the download link and it will then go and download the entire video to your screen. Or if you click on the watch link, it will get you to our website, or excuse me, our YouTube site, and you can actually watch the video there. So it's just making it a little bit easier for you to access this information. But again, I did want to go and let you know that you now have a way that you can go and find out what's going to be coming up in advance by using our events calendar. And we're trying to put as much of this out there as we can, as quickly as possible for you, so that to keep you informed. All right, back to the workshop. So this functionality, this data engineering functionality was just introduced in ArcGIS Pro 2.8. We had actually done some early beta testing on it. It's really some amazing functionality. If, like some of us, you do a lot of engineering of the data in the background before you actually get to use it. With this functionality, you'll be able to do things such as find where you have null values in your data, where you have things that are missing, things that are outliers in there. And it's fairly easy to go and start this thing. Inside of ArcGIS Pro, all you need to go is right-click on any single layer, right-click on it, and data engineering in 2.8 is now right underneath the attribute table. So if I go here and go to a project that I have here, and by the way, even though this is a parcel fabric project, this works with simple feature classes, with anything you have and you bring into ArcGIS Pro. So in here, I'm going to take my tax polygons and I'm going to right click on it and go up to data engineering. And that will bring up a new display here. And that new display will not just open up this pane, but it also goes and brings a new tab open here, in which you have all of the same functionality. You have the ability to go and open up the fields definition, open up the attribute table. You can do selections by attribute, regular pull up your select and do an interactive select. You can do select by attributes, select by location, or you can pull up your attributes pane on here. Over here, there's tools that are associated with this so that you'll see as I come through here, I start using some of these tools in here. These are tools that help you clean up and make sure that what you've got is what it should be. All right, so let's start exploring this actual functionality and what we've got here. Underneath here, and I had actually previously done this, but I'll go in and I'll move it down to here. So I'll go and I'll select all of these attribute fields. And I will go and right click on it and say, go ahead and add the statistics for these fields and calculate them. The first thing, and this is critical, I just recently experienced this, is when you look at these listings for the attribute fields, you'll notice, for example, that this name field actually is a text field. And if you hover over the name of it, it will tell you the definition of this. This right-of-way type is a long integer. So you want to be careful as you're mixing these up or as you're calculating them to recognize that there are differences in the functionality and what is going to report between the text strings and the number strings and how it goes and does it. So municipality in this case is text, document number is text, not true area is a number field. So if we go over here, for example, this is the name field, the one I'm looking at right now, and it gives you the field name, the alias, the field type. The most important one we look at when we're going through here is whether or not there's any null values in here, whether there are records or features that do not have a value in this attribute field. In this case, it shows no or zero null values in here. Let's keep going across here. There's a histogram chart preview showing us sort of what the histogram of these values look like. When we are dealing with a number field, it actually will show us the minimum, maximum, mean, standard deviation, the median value on here. The next important field that I look at all the time is the count field. How many values do you have in there? Whether or not you've got a highly populated, whether everything is populated correctly in here, how many values you have in here for the number of records in here. And then the number of the unique values on here. So when I look at the number of unique values, comparing it to the count value, I can see, for example, that I have several values in the name field that are repeated. They are not the same. And it also shows me things like the mode, least common values, outliers, sums, the range, especially this again with number fields, and tells us what the quantiles are on here and gives us basically a whole set of descriptive statistics about these features that are shown in our data. And this is really nice. And again, you could have done some of this with attribute tables and gone through and modified and look at them, but it's an easier way to get in here and just sort of look at this. So let's look at the tools that are available for us. And we'll start exploring a little bit more how you use some of these things. But there's really 4 different sets of tools that are available. The first set of tools is a clean set. And we have here, this is the view. Here's a set of the tools. So the clean set, the functions that you have here, you have one in which you can fill in missing values. And this function replaces missing values with estimated values based on things such as spatial neighbors and space-time neighbors, time series neighbors. It depends upon what type of data you have as far as which of these functions you're going to use. The fill missing values for most of our parcel work, we really don't use that much, but it does allow us to go and sort of do some estimation on what that value might be. We use another function a lot more. We use a calculate field in order to go in and figure out and populate those. But still, in the clean tools, we also have a delete field, one in which allows you to go and just delete that field directly out of your data set. This is not just removing it from your project. It's actually deleting the field from the table or the feature class or feature layer. So it is actually making a change in your structure on here. The next clean tool is a spatial outlier detection, in which it goes and looks at spatial outliers. Again, we haven't used that much. There's a project field, which allows you to project spatial data from one coordinate system to another coordinate system. And this basically will work against the feature class and allow you to go and do that. So let's sort of experiment with this a little bit. So I have here a municipality attribute field, which is aliased as a municipality, and it's supposed to include sort of the values that I have in here. Matter of fact, if I go in and click on municipality, I can tell it to create a chart for me and create a bar chart and tell me what these municipalities are that it's listing in here. And it will show me sort of the distribution of data counts for the various municipalities in this data set, showing me each of them. And again, you know, here's the city of Waukesha. I've got 23,222. Over here, I've got Menomonee Falls, which is 15,000. So again, it allows me to go in and look at this data and explore it a little bit more. I'm not as concerned about those values that are stored in there, but I am concerned about the nulls. I want to know, where are these nulls in here? So what I can do is I can click on this field for null values, and I can right click on it. I can select that, and I can say, go ahead and select these null values. And if I look at my display here, I actually see here that it has selected for me those two null values. And I can go and say zoom to these selected features by clicking on the zoom to selected features button down on the, this is on the lower right area of my display extent. I can do that, and it can show me that in fact there was two parcels here that appear that they have not been attributed correctly. And there's a couple things I can do with that. I might go and, for example, turn on my civil divisions and recognize that, oh, let me start editing, by the way. Start editing here, and I'll do a selection here. And I'll say, well, these two parcels here, if I go to my attributes, I can say these two parcels actually are located in the city of Muskego. So one of the things I might do is I might go up here and say this here is actually the city of Muskego, and have it go and commit those, auto apply, and then go in and let it go and populate. By the way, this is a very early set of data I'm testing right now and going through. So you may see little errors and warnings pop up for me on here as I'm going through. All right. So that's one of the things that we can do, is we can look at this and calculate and figure out exactly what's going on here. And see if there's any values in here that I might have to go and correct or clean up on here. Doing it by hand, and you see that I have no values anymore. But there's other tools that are available to me besides these tools here. There's construct tools. These construct tools actually are much more valuable, much more useful to us, because they have things such as, if you have a geometry attribute that you want to calculate, it will go and populate that geometry attribute so that I could conceivably, if this were a field here, I could go in here and I could select this value, select that null value. I can then go in and zoom to that null value in here, and I could tell it again to go and construct the geometry attributes, and it pops up that geoprocessing tool for calculating geometry attributes. And I could tell it to go and do whatever attributes I'm looking for, the field I'm looking for, and what coordinate system I'm looking to do it in. So it could calculate lat longs, those sorts of things on here. That's the construct or calculate geometry attributes on here. The one I find more useful, the one that I use more than anything else, is I use calculate fields. So when I click on calculate fields, it will bring up my calculate fields dialog box and then allow me to go and do any sort of calculation that I want on here. Because I have selected features, whatever calculations I do will only go and work against those selected features. The one thing, again, this is the first iteration of this. The only thing I wish is that because we have this, I wish that it would automatically populate the field in which this is going to be calculated, but that's a minor disturbance now. Again, I can use Arcade, I can use Python. I could preload calculations if I had, for example, Arcade scripts that I want to use every once in a while. This is an intersect script. I could do that, test it out, and use it. And this calculate attributes function inside of our construct tools is very, 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 very useful, to the point where that jurisdiction, instead of going and selecting the other attributes, I could have just done an intersect against my civil division layer and said, if I have a distribution of those null values where they don't have their municipality correctly located, just go and do an intersect against here, and so that it captures the city or the municipality name and populates it in that field and get rid of it that way. So there's a couple ways to go through and clean this up. All right. More calculate or construct tools in here. There's the transform tool, which, if you're looking at some sort of a surface, allows you to go and provide mathematical functions, and it changes the shape and the distribution of it. There's also a standardize, in which it allows it to go and standardize the values inside of here. There is an add tool function. Again, this is the standard add attribute field, which will go and add an attribute field that you can then go and calculate again. So the clean tool gives you a delete field, and the construct tool actually allows you to have an add field. There is also dimensional reduction, and there's time series smoothing in here. These are some more advanced statistical fields that you might be using. The next set of tools is an integrate tool. This integrate tool allows you to go and take information from other data sources and integrate it in, right? And it uses things such as the join field tool. The join field tool allows you to go and join another table. All right, and it's based upon an attribute join, and it's updated to contain the fields of that join table, and then you can select them and calculate them as you want. The enrich tool allows you to go and pull information from demographic or landscape facts from the ArcGIS Online layers that are available. anything from the Living Atlas to some of the other business analysis data sets that you might have. So it allows you to go and pull the information from there. By the way, let me stop here and just let you know, Chris is actually moderating the chat window. If you have any questions, please go and put them in the chat window, and Chris will go and let me know when there's a question out there for you. Let me know if I'm going through this too quickly, whether you want me to slow down or whether you want me to give you some more examples of what's going on here. All right, the NEAR tool. The NEAR tool allows you to calculate, and again, this is the NEAR geoprocessing tool that gets populated and pulled up. This allows you to go and calculate how far away from something else the individual features are. We'll use this often with when we're going and pulling in annotation. And you can see it here, in which this is actually, these are pieces of annotation that were exported out to a point feature class. And what we'll often do is we will go and, in order to go and transfer this text value from here onto the closest line to it, we'll do a NEAR function, and that will allow us to go and identify what the closest feature is to that piece of annotation, how far away it is, and allows us to go and take and then go and do a join and calculate the line distances so that it matches that pieces of annotation. You can see here, just from this one example, though, some of the issues that are associated with this, and that, for example, here, this 2378 is not close to this one arc, which is what it's actually pointing to. Instead, it's probably closer to this one straight line here. So it's not perfect, but it's a way to go and capture values and annotation and make that transition from pieces of anno into labeling and using true values on features. It's, again, it's an interesting way to approach this. Let's go back here again. All right, so that's the NEAR function. The spatial join. A spatial join, again, is similar to an attribute join, except it goes and creates a spatial join, going and capturing the attributes from one feature on another feature class into the one which you're intersecting, sort of like a union does, but allows you to go and move those. One of the things you want to be aware of is that some of these functions, they actually create new data sets. They don't necessarily just go and work on the single data set that you're analyzing, but it goes and creates new ones. The NEAR function, the spatial joins, these all create new feature classes in here. Summarize within, it goes and overlays the polygon with another one to summarize the number of points, lengths, or lines or areas within each polygon, and calculates attribute statistics for this. This is another nice tool that we'll often use. Sample goes and creates a table or a point feature class that shows the values of the cells from a raster. So if you're dealing with raster sets, summarize nearby, finds features that are within a specific distance, sort of like a select by location, and calculates statistics for those. And then there's apportionments where you summarize inputs on what's going on there. All right, those are here's construction. Here's the integrate, which goes and integrates information from other data sources. And then finally, we have some formatting elements on here so that we can go and encode fields and convert time and time series and reclassification and do pivot tables on them. As someone who works primarily in vectors, we don't use this very often, We haven't been doing much work with our clients for time fields, but it is critical on here. So when I look at this and look at, well, what of these, which of these do we actually use an awful lot? We'll often do fill in missing lines or missing values. We'll often do delete fields if we find fields that are just not really necessary anymore. And I can show you, there's some on here. For example, maybe there is we'll add the legal start date on here. Let it calc things. There's no values in here. Wow, they're actually very good at populating these. Let's see what our counts are. There's only one record actually has a legal start date. So we might go and take this and tell it to go and do a clean and delete this field. And it will allow us to go and, by doing that, automatically go and delete the field. It's being edited. Thank you so much. So let's stop editing here. And let's go in here and delete that field. Another tool that we like an awful lot is that one more field. There is the alter field here. The alter field is nice in that it allows you to go and change the definition of a specific field. The alter field is an underutilized function. It's one that we really wanted a lot in ArcMap, but we never really got around to. So let's go and, for example, let's look at this history field. Let's go and bring that into our analysis. And I can go in here and say, let's go and alter this field. Now, what alter field allows us to do is it allows it to go and change the name of the field, the alias of the field, and the type of the field. So let me make sure, here is the name of the field. I can give it a new name on here. I can give it a new alias. I was incorrect when I said change the type of it. History, and I can define the length, but I cannot change the type. So by the way, text fields in ArcGIS Pro are 255. They are no longer limited on 50. So I can go in here and change this and tell it to go ahead and make that change on that field, that history type field. So as I'm going through and I'm designing this database, and as I'm looking at it and evaluating it, I can go and make all the modifications in here. So are there any questions yet on here while we're waiting for this to go?
We do have one question from Mark. Can we see the longest used string to change the field length?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. So if we go in here, let's go to name. All right. Let's go up to the name field and see, unfortunately, there is the mode, the least common, but it does not tell you the length of the longest field on here. One of the things you can do is with Arcade, well, it's not going to give you that overall length. You could do probably a summary to get the count, which would give you the number of values in a character string on there. That's about it. Let's go and create a chart on here and see if that will give us anything else. And we can't create one for more than 100,000 bars. So I have to go in and value that. This is a long municipality. It is attribute table, properties. I can do a pivot on here. By the way, this is another interesting thing. You can do a pivot, you can do an analysis on here, but I do not see where it allows you to go and do that calculation, Mark. I'm sorry. By the way, it's one of those things where I'm still learning all this. They put an awful lot in here, and I'm still going through trying to figure out all the tools that are in here and what we can do with all of them. It is, again, it's one of those things where the more you dig into it, the more there's things that you can go and look at. For example, things such as I can tell it which fields to actually go and display, and whether or not I want just the text fields, whether I want all the numeric fields in here. I can calculate statistics for the fields that are shown in here. So let me see. Let me do this again. So you go and remove these fields from this. And just go back to the name field. So let's see if I can calculate this on here. So give me a chart preview on this. No. No, I don't see where it will give you that ability on here. Sorry about that. It's a good question, though. It might be something that is worth putting up on the ArcGIS website and using that. So again, one of the things we'll often do is, as I'm going through and doing migrations, I'm looking for specific elements within the individual data sets that we're bringing in. And I'll look and for example, go to the polygons in here, and I'll look at these individual polygons, and I'll look at these feature classes, and I'll say, well, what is still being used from those original feature classes that were part of this? And I'll look at this. You can see this was an old ArcMap parcel fabric that was converted over. So it has all of these old fields in here. And I can see, for example, encumbrance type, and this is a simultaneous conveyance polygon. So you've got encumbrance type in here, and I may go in here and tell it to go ahead and just remove this field from here. I can go and also say, well, just go and open up the fields display. Let's go and put that here. From that, I can go in here and evaluate and say, okay, the encumbrance field, which is down here. I'll take the encumbrance type. I'll go and I'll tell it to go and delete that type. I'll look at the separated right and delete that one because that's all null. The history type, I'll delete that also. And as I go through, I can see the floor designator, all of these, all the way down to special surveys, special survey notes. These are all. I'll tell it to go and delete these out because those fields are no longer needed. I'll look, jurisdiction is a new one. The original feature ID and some of these others I might go and delete through, and then say go ahead and make all those changes in the data set. So I'll quickly be able to go and analyze all of the attribute fields in this data before I go and start doing much else with it and actually configuring these correctly. All right, so are there any other questions in here? Again, this is pretty simple stuff, but it's really, really useful if you're going and doing information and setting up your schemas checking the quality of the data, seeing whether or not there's any values stored in there, and such. Especially is handy if you're looking at numeric fields, and there's a whole lot of spatial statistics that you can do. Flattening things, you can go and put them together. So are there questions or anything that we may want to talk about on these?
Nothing in the chat at the moment.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, we might just close this out and make this a shorter workshop. So I'll go ahead and I will do that. Let's go in here, and hopefully you enjoyed this workshop. It was a little bit shorter than normal, but give us any suggestions on items that you want to go and talk about and things that you're interested in. Thanks. Bye.